Hello everyone and welcome in my garden. We're now between the middle and the end of June and everything started growing like crazy. So this is our first growing season and I thought it would be interesting to show you around in our garden. Follow me. So the first thing that we tackled when we started this garden was the grass. Everything here was overgrown. You couldn't recognize the beds from the rest of the garden. There was actually never grass before and it was completely covered in weeds. I actually made a video where you can see how we tackled all of this. And then we sowed some grass. We also dropped some seeds of clover that is coming up very nicely. Because here in Italy the grass sometimes dies back a little bit with the heat of the summer and we thought maybe clover would be more resistant. Let's see. We also want to bring some biodiversity. Just grass is not very interesting. Clover makes flowers after a while, which is very nice for insects. And we have a lot of insects that come to this garden to try and find some nectar and play around, honestly. We also dropped some seeds of marigolds, but they didn't come yet. Let's see if they will come at some point, or maybe next year. Another thing to think about when a garden has been abandoned for so long is the soil. The soil really needs nutrients and needs to be alive for the plants to grow very well. I've been thinking for a while about how poor the soil was or not. But it was hard for me to figure out. It didn't look very good in my hand. The soil looks a bit clumpy and dusty, but it does look like that in a lot of gardens over here in this area. Also because of the stones and just the consistency, the main consistency of the soil. I also saw that plants like these were doing very well. So it was a little bit hard to estimate how poor the soil exactly was. For the vegetable garden, I put some compost and I mixed it with the ground that was already there. And I was going to see if that was enough or not. I also didn't start off with a lot of vegetables exactly for that reason, to see how things would grow here, how much it would suffer from the heat, if the soil, how I treated it, was good enough for them to grow. If you have a smaller vegetable garden, the work doesn't get overwhelming, and if you make mistakes, it's less costly or less heartbreaking because less plants are suffering and it's easier to catch up in the middle of the year. Well, you can see by the size of our sunflowers that the soil is not that rich. Sunflowers, in order to grow very strong and high, need a lot of nutrients, and they really show the lack of nutrients in the ground. While some other flowers, they don't care, they just take what they need and they grow very well, like this little flower border behind me. But other plants like sunflowers and vegetable plants, they really show that they need more. Some perennials that were already planted in this garden and form a very beautiful border are these plants over here. We have some aster. They are purple and they bloom in September and in October, so they are the last flowers to really perk up the garden and make it look very beautiful. Then we have some pansy, which are yellow flowers. We have some phloxes and allium. Yeah, I'm very happy with these flowers. It's also practical that they're planted in this border because like this it's very easy to cut the grass past it. This last piece of border was left completely plain, so I chose to throw some seeds from a flower border mix. I chose the one for butterflies and bees, and actually it was a very good choice because it's very popular with the bees especially. With this border, I didn't know exactly what to do. Preferably in the future, I want to work towards having higher plants growing here, so we're a little bit covered from the view from the street. It's not necessarily beautiful what we see on the street. But we already started with this bush. In Flemish we call it a butterfly bush, but I will look up the proper name and put it on the screen. And this attracts a lot of butterflies and bees and also grows very fast in different conditions. And for the rest, I have a border of sunflowers here. Some voluntarily flowers, some roses that were already planted here. And on the other right, and on the other side of the fence, there's also a bit of hydrangeas growing. For the rest, I have two melon plants over here. I made a bed of echinacea that I started from seed. So probably next year we will have some beautiful pink flowers growing here too. This bed was also planted before we came. In the spring, the first things that we saw were Easter flowers. There were a lot of them that were popping up. Then came tulips together with irises, and it was really beautiful. It was a complete colorful sea over here. And I think we had beautiful flowers for about a month, like this, in the way that it was planted. But then when they bloomed out, I had to wait until everything was dried out before I could cut the leaves and the flowers away, because otherwise the tulips and irises don't have enough energy to store in their bulbs for the next year, which was a little bit less elegant, let's say, because the leaves were all scattered everywhere, and it looked brown and dead for quite a while. So I tried to tie it up into little teepee shapes for a while, so that I also could reach down between the leaves to take away weeds and maybe start planting some other stuff already. When everything was cut away, I started planting mostly annuals because I still didn't figure out what exactly I want to do with this little border. We have Chinese lanterns here. They are very cute. They give orange fruits in September and October. So in summer there's not much to see. Usually they're beautiful little plants, but they don't really give big flowers. And the fruits are green for quite a while. When they start getting orange, it's quite a view. And you can also eat them, which is nice. For the rest, I have very beautiful soft pink zinnias. I'm really waiting for them to bush out and to become very big. I have sweet peas. I have some dahlias, which are actually plants that I want to multiply by myself by taking cuttings, but I have to start doing that in the spring of next year by just planting the root too early and then taking all the early shoots and propagating those. And normally they will grow tubers over the year. I have some marigolds that are really happy over here. Very beautiful orange sunflowers that you see here. But they consume a lot of energy, so you have to put some extra fertilizer in the ground when you plant some sunflowers. I see some more zinnias, and I also planted some melons over there that I seeded too late, but I still wanted to give them a try. And then in the back I have a little line of gladioli and lion beaks that I started from seed. I don't know the proper name of lion beaks, we call them like that, both in Italian and in Flemish. I will put the proper name on the screen. And yeah, that's it. This little garden bed is hands down my favorite part of the garden. It's something that we built by ourselves completely. It was not here yet. The only plants that were standing here were these roses, and I was thinking on how to work around them, so I just thought of making this bed and then putting some herbs there and some vegetables more in the back. The first herbs that you see here is parsley, and I planted them in a spot where they get the morning light, because now it's morning. But when it gets very warm at noon, the house casts a shadow on this part of the little garden. For now, they're standing like this for 2 months already. I can just cut as much as I want. For the rest, we planted some lemon balm, one of my favorite herbs, some marjolana. We have some mint. We have coriander that immediately shoots into a flower. And we have borage, which is super attractive to bees, and I'm really happy with this flower because it brings so much life to this garden. And for the rest, I planted some beautiful red sunflowers. They really bring a lot of color. So I'm happy with this patch. It's so vibrant, it's so beautiful. I really enjoy coming here. The little path of the herbal garden ends in the vegetable garden. Here we have zucchini, tomatoes, and cucumbers. I thought of starting off very small with a few plants, so it will be manageable. and I will be able to check what the plants need, how it grows in this soil. And I'm happy I did it like this. In the beginning, the zucchini plants were a little bit stunted. The plants stayed small, and also the vegetables that they made were rather small. So it showed that it lacked nutrients in the ground. I gave it some extra fertilizer, and now it's starting. The plants are really big. I think I get about 7 vegetables out of this every week. Actually, right now there's a giant one. Well, not giant, but bigger than I want to let them be. Look at that. The tomato plants, they seem to have suffered way less from the lack of nutrients. These ones are a little bit more skinny, but they're also an undefined tomato plant. They were just volunteer plants that were growing in the garden of my father-in-law. And he asked me if I wanted some. I said yes. And that's how I ended up with these. I already tasted some of the tomatoes. They're very nice. They're really good in flavor. And also the plants, they make quite a quantity, I have to say. And then I have one tomato plant that has bigger tomatoes, and those are yellow fleshy tomatoes. And these are our cucumber plants. In the beginning, I was not even planning to plant cucumbers. How it happened was my aunt, she's very sweet. She gave me a giant pack of seeds, and there were also a lot of cucumber seeds in there. So I saw some interesting types, and I thought, well, since we're already past the beginning of the growing season, with cucumbers I think I can get away because they grow rather fast. So those I seeded. We have 3 varieties. We have just regular long sweet ones. We have Chinese cucumbers and something that's called a lemon cucumber. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm happy to figure that out. The cucumbers, they go very well. I don't think you will believe me if they were seeded less than 2 months ago, and they're already this big. They're reaching high every week. Every time when it rains, you just see them growing. I cannot keep up with how fast they grow. I'm tying them up here to make them grow up, but they make so many extra shootings and everything grows so fast that they're outgrowing me. But I'm trying, I'm really trying. They have a lot of little flowers, and some of these flowers even have a small vegetable attached to it. So I will be happy to eat the first cucumbers from the garden. And these little pops of orange color that you see are marigolds. I started them from seed, from marigolds that were planted here before. And yeah, you plant them in the vegetable garden because they keep some pests and insects away. And I really like how it looks. They will grow very bushy and they will be very pretty also when the rest of the garden is dying. Another plant that was already in this garden when we moved here is this hydrangea. It's planted in the shadow of the house. It gets mostly the morning sun, but as soon as it hits 12 and it starts getting warm, the shadow of the house falls over this plant, so it doesn't dry out and it doesn't suffer too much from the burning heat in the summer. This hydrangea is really beautiful and healthy and big. I gave it just a little bit of fertilizer and I cut it back a little bit because it became rather big and the flowers became a bit smaller. But now we have very big, luscious flowers. It gives a very beautiful pink background to the garden, and it's a very thankful plant. Hydrangeas also flower pretty long. It already started, let's say, 2 weeks ago, and these flowers will last for at least another 2 weeks, if not more. And here we have our peach tree. They grew by themselves apparently, and they grew this big in 6 years. I didn't do much with the tree this year because I didn't know how to prune it, and by the time that I looked it up, I found out that the best time already passed. So for this year we will let it as it is. I gave it a little bit of extra fertilizer. Yeah, but we have to say that the peach tree is very susceptible to pests, so it's completely full with little insects that are sucking out of all of the juices of the leaves. My father-in-law comes every now and then to put some product on it, but it doesn't really help. And we don't know what else to do. And then on this side of the house, we have a wall that is south facing, and it takes the sun for about the entire day. So it was hard to figure out what I could plant here, and I've been experimenting a bit. So the first things that I planted were lavender plants. I got these from my father-in-law. One of them already died because of the heat. The roots couldn't really take. The other ones seem to be taking pretty well because they're standing here for 2 months now, and they're already making new little shootings. For the rest, I bought a beautiful sunflower that I really love and makes me happy. I put some dill, of which I know that can take some heat. So let's see how it survives the summer, because until now it has been warm, but not as burning warm, hot as it can get in Italy sometimes. And for the rest, I've just thrown some seeds from flower beds to see what would come up, what would survive, check things out. For example, we have beautiful zinnias now here. The first one are actually starting to bloom. We still have some nigella left over because that has been blooming the entire spring together with the roses that were already planted here, which was beautiful. This entire bed was completely blue. But I had to pull the bloomed out flowers away because otherwise they would take away all the sun and light from the other flowers that were coming up. We have some little white flowers, of which I don't even know what it is. We have cornflowers, this flower called malvafiora, which I think might be a perennial. Actually would have to look it up. I will put it down somewhere in the screen when I find it out. Which gives us beautiful pink flowers, and I'm happy about it. And something that I've seen growing very big, but I don't know what it is yet. So the flowers still have to come. I don't recognize the leaf, so I've never grown it before, but it looks promising. I thought I would be growing cosmos, but normally cosmos have way more fluffy leaves. I don't know what this is. We have some statice also that I put in, and they're also doing very well because they like very dry spots. They like a lot of sun. If it's not warm and sunny enough, statice tends to get very weak, and then you have to support them. But these ones are very strong. And let's see in fall what survived and what I can plant again. And also I planted some echinacea. So I started those from seed, but they will not come this year. Like we just have little leaves, it will grow into a root system and into a plant, but normally the flowers will come next year. So that will be something to look forward to. Because also echinacea is a flower that normally is very resistant to drought and to heat. So let's see how they do. Yeah, and I will also try to save their seeds. And then maybe next year I do it all over again, depending on how this experiment ends up. I love this garden. I find it really beautiful. And I love to come and walk here and see how everything is growing. And I love to see the flowers, the vegetables, the little insects doing their thing. Nature is really beautiful, especially if you see it growing under your hands. That really gives an extra magical touch to everything. Every now and then I've been a little bit discouraged. For example, when I see how fast that the weeds are growing and how much time it takes me to take everything away and make it look organized and neat. Or, for example, when everything where the tulips grew looked grey and died out. Those are moments that are a little bit discouraging. But then, with a bit of work, when I fixed everything up, it was so beautiful and it gives so much energy in return. So yeah, I'm happy that we're having this garden, and I'm happy that I'm starting this journey of gardening. And I'm already learning a lot. For example, fertilize your soil. The plants really need it because they grow so much better. Even if it looks like some plants are doing okay, maybe other ones, like vegetable plants or sunflowers, they really need a lot of energy to grow. I really look forward to the rest of this growing season and also to making plans for next year, because this year was our first year. It was a trial year to see how everything does, how the soil reacts, if I know enough to do all of this, to pull this off, and for me to learn a lot. about the garden, about soil, about all the flowers and all the vegetable plants. Maybe towards the end of the growing season I might give you another update. So yeah, I hope that you like this video, and I hope that maybe it encourages you to start gardening yourself, even if it is in a pot, because it's really fun. It's beautiful to see how things can grow under your fingers. And yeah, see you next time and have a lovely day.